Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is CM Alexander with the news. Another stabbing inside the Derry Public Library has caused many concerned citizens to take up a new cause banning books. In an official statement, the organizers stated, "The only way to stop these maniacs with knives is to no longer have a library in which to be stabbed." When asked if they'd consider the harm of closing a place where people can find the help they need no matter their background, economic status, education, or orientation, they responded, "This isn't about helping people, it's about being right." You're listening to Derry Public Radio. This is Derry Public Radio. Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King Book Club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, CM Alexander, alongside Joshua Kahn.
Hey, everybody.
And Benjamin Graham.
Hey, constant readers.
And today we are on part 2 of Insomnia, where we are covering through chapter 14. Josh, take it away.
I sure will. So normally here's where we do the recap, but so much stuff happened, and I don't know what's plot yet.
This is a real cheater's way out.
It's a segue into the fact that this story is so much that I don't know what the plot is yet. Like that, I've noticed I've been kind of struggling through this first half, and I think that's why is I don't have. Beyond my sleep thinner joke from earlier, that's like the only concrete thing I've been like. That's the consistent thing that's happening, and I don't know what story we're following mostly yet.
I can get that.
Yeah, that's very fair. And if you're looking for the plot, I don't think we're gonna hit it by the end of this episode.
Oh my god! Still, the cliff notes, what you need to know, and you guys can fill in anything since you know what's gonna happen. We have the rally for women care that is stirring up a bunch of tension in the town. Ed Deepnose, gone completely crazy, has fanaticized Friends of Life and terrorized people he has dubbed centurions. Ralph, our main character, is not sleeping, and now he's seeing auras. Right? That pretty much everything we need to know right now?
That does it.
Fantastic.
Good job, Josh.
How is that all? How is that all that's plot relevant so far? It's so crazy. All right, so let's pick up this story where Ralph comes home. Dorrance is just on Ralph's porch.
Yeah, I love that we actually didn't even get to Dorrance in the first episode. Because he's one of the first characters that we met, right?
We mentioned it very briefly.
So let's talk about Dorrance, how we met Dorrance before and what happens here now. So we met Dorrance on that first day, and he said one very weird thing to Ralph during that whole fight with the heavyset man who was driving the truck. And it was, "Don't go near him. I can't see his hands anymore."
I can't see your hands
I can't
anymore.
see your hands.
And he also tells him not to mess in with long-time business.
Yeah.
What is he saying do we know what that means yet? Why
I have no idea.
No, why he couldn't see his hands?
Yeah.
Is it because the aura around the fight was so powerful that it was obscuring Ralph's hands?
Is that?
Yes, but sorry. Oh, I screamed it. Because much later in this episode, we're going to talk about Ralph seeing little kids fighting.
It's the best part of the book so far.
Yeah.
And yes, and he speculates, what would it look like if you were in a war seeing people fighting? Like, what would the aura storm be above that? And so I think that can obscure if you're heightened enough, if it's strong enough. So that's how I took it, because I don't think it's a bag of death thing.
No, I wouldn't think
Which
so.
we'll also get to.
So Dorrance is here to deliver a message. A very weird thing, because they're not like pals.
No, because he's the kooky guy in town.
Yeah.
That everybody just... He's
everyone's
very childlike.
Everyone's
That's how people treat
is
him.
very dismissive of him in a not kind way.
Yeah.
And he carries around a book of poetry all the time. It's another thing they talk about a lot. And he doesn't know who the message is from. He says that. And it's to cancel his appointment with the pin sticker man.
What he makes me think of, and I'm not well read enough to name any specific instances of this trope, but the kind of almost Lovecraftian someone who has gazed into stuff that they shouldn't have and is now just kind of disconnected from reality because Dorrance knows shit.
He knows all the
clearly.
shit. Yeah.
And he's not a part of the shit, but he's been affected by it, and it's really interesting.
That's the thing I'm very excited to know more about is how Dorrance falls into all this. He also gives him a copy of the book of poems that he was carrying around, and he flips through and he reads one called Cemetery Nights, and there's a line that sticks in his head. But it's something to the effect of, I hurry through doing things.
Each thing I do, I rush through.
To get to another thing to do. Something like that. Like
way more eloquent, but yes.
Yeah, sure.
Ben, sorry, Josh, I have to exclude you from this question because this is your first time reading it. Dorrance also has an expression that he says.
Done bun can't be undone.
That expression, I remember... God, I hope I didn't say it out loud. I'm sure I only said it in my head. I said that a lot as a teenager.
Really?
Yes, it's so stupid.
It's a kingism that stuck with you. That's okay.
Yes,
I
'cause it
used to
rhymes.
say, you can bet your mama or whatever the fuck.
Ask mom if she believes this.
Yeah.
Before we move on with the plot, can we talk about the audiobook?
Yes.
Many listeners have messaged us warning us that if we are listening to the audiobook to take care because the music is jarring. That is such a gross understatement.
The first time it happened, I went, oh, this rules. Every subsequent time, I'm like, I can't hear your fucking voice.
Yes. I'm sure the composer composed something very interesting, but it was mixed. Awful.
Oh God.
It's bad.
Sorry, I just had to rant.
No,
the narrator, though.
The narrator's
his fault.
super good. I love how well he does not just the character voices, but variations on the main accent.
Yeah.
Everyone has just that slight main twang without it being like cartoonish. It's really good. It is too bad that there are usually very critical points in the book because it's mostly at the end of chapters where they're building up to something and then all of a sudden you cannot understand the fucking person reading the book underneath it. It's a rough listen.
I stopped listening to the audiobook after the chapter that we are currently in. After this next scene, brilliant segue that just happened to my life. Where Ralph goes to the Derry Public Library to do more Insomnia research, and he's in the zone, running on fumes because now he's waking up at like 1:48 in the morning, and a man in gray sweats just shows up in the doorway, and he doesn't notice.
Charles Pickering?
Charles Pickering.
Crazy guy.
Wow.
We talked about him briefly last time because he was on the news segment with Ed.
Sorry, he wasn't on the news segment. That was Dan Dalton.
Oh.
This is the guy who they've referenced a few times because he was the one who was going to firebomb the clinic.
That's right.
And then got arrested. And he was at the rally with the blood-inflated babies.
And now he's at the library with a knife.
Massive hunting knife. And sits down next to Ralph, just presses it in.
This freaked me the fuck out. I did not like this at all.
Yeah?
No. I am terrified of fucking knives.
Yeah.
The point where he has the knife far enough in Ralph's side that Pickering says, I can feel your heartbeat in the handle. It must be beating very hard. I hate it.
It's so crazy because he's like, I wonder what they look like. And Ralph's just noticing what's happening. And he looks at him and he says, Your guts, I mean. I was like, oh my God.
It's rad.
Yeah, it's so fucking intense.
Oh, I want to see that scene play out in a movie.
Right. So he's completely frozen while this guy is laying into him about being a centurion and how he's, taking him off the board. And Ralph stays frozen because he realizes in the auras, his aura is green and black. And he says green is paranoia and confusion. And when he does push the knife in, it'll be the black that pushes the knife. Which is just another layer to all this aura madness I can't wait to get further into.
Luckily, though, he puts his right hand in his pocket to see if he has something that he could use. And even though he stuck the bottle of mace or whatever, their version
tear
of
gas.
mace, tear gas, on top of his fridge, on top of his fridge, it's somehow in his pocket. So he uses that to get away from this crazy guy.
The fact that his Hail Mary is saying, I know who the Crimson King is.
My gosh.
And Charles loses it for a second and it gives him time. And I love that when he pulls the can out, as he's falling back, he's like, I don't know which direction this nozzle's spraying, so this is a real crapshoot. But blasts him in the face and Charlie's going nuts about how he's blind.
Such a baby. I love that. He's rolling on the floor, screaming, I'm blind, I'm blind. And Ralph is like, oh shit, no man, you're okay.
Yeah,
and the guy's just flipping
his
out.
instant instinct is like, oh man, I hurt this guy. It's like he has a knife, my dude.
When Mike comes up, he's like, hey, are
Mike-
you okay? And
Mike, who's also been stabbed in this library.
Oh, yes, this is a dangerous library. But Mike's like, oh my
They're
God,
in a
what
very special
happened?
club together.
And Ralph is like, I sprayed him. It's not lethal. And he's like, what happened to you? And I don't care about him. Anyone who screams that loudly is fine.
It's also because Ralph hasn't noticed how bad he's bleeding yet.
Yeah.
Because it's just
he's
pooled
got
in his
adrenaline,
shirt.
yeah.
See, that's what's so fucking scary about knives, man. You don't feel how badly you've been stabbed. I've heard too many stories that when you get stabbed, it doesn't feel like being stabbed. You just think you've been
Oh,
punched.
that's a relief.
We have very different ideas about stabbings.
We're afraid of different things.
See, I'm just afraid of pain.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I'm unreasonable and afraid of violent death.
I like that there seems to be no rush to call the cops at first as they handle this situation until they notice that it's Charlie Pickering. And they're like, oh, this is like a real dangerous guy. We should get the
Yeah.
cops down here. Luckily, they call the cops and they talk to a person instead of over a clown saying that they're here and someone's been stabbed.
God.
So Lydecker comes there and tells him he won't be charged because Ralph is super worried that he's going to be in trouble.
That would be so me. When I first started driving, somebody stopped a little abruptly in front of me, and I guess I was following too close, and I rear-ended them.
Ooh.
I wasn't going fast because it was a school zone, and the woman was picking up her child, and she was also
Oh my God.
8.5 months pregnant.
Oh,
Jesus
no.
And I thought I was going to go to jail.
Oh, no.
I was just sobbing. Her husband was like, because she went to the hospital. He's like, it's fine.
Oh my God.
It's fine. He seemed tired.
Your hesitancy to drive really does come into focus after that story a little bit.
I hate driving. I hit unborn babies when I drive.
Whoa! Isolate
Jesus
that
Christ.
audio. Quickly grab it before she edits it.
CM is a centurion of the Crimson King.
I'm a little bald dog too. Okay, sorry.
You said that too
It's gonna be a-
sweetly.
It's gonna be a weird soundboard.
Now, I like the conversation they have on the drive home. Lydecker takes Ralph home after they dress his wound. What do you guys think of the conversation about what is going to happen, what they think is going to happen as a fallout of this?
Can we just talk about the whole conversation?
Yeah.
When Ralph goes back to the station the next day to give a full statement.
Sure.
And we'll get to what else they discuss there because it's after he witnesses something. I find Lydecker because I otherwise like him, but I'm really irritated by his victim blaming tendencies, because he's really I do appreciate that he's like, I'm scared because this woman's coming here and it's stirring up a lot of things in the city, and I don't want anything to happen to anyone. I want to make sure that she comes and goes safely, nobody gets hurt, and I do my job and I protect people, which is something I like doing. That's why I'm here. But just the way he talks about the two sides, like basically being the same, and all they care about is that people know they're right and the other side admits it, which is a horrible perspective. That is not.
It is such horseshit. He
basically says, look what she was wearing. She had it coming. Don't dress that way and you won't get raped. That's his attitude.
The pro-choice people are, look at all of the damage they're doing by causing such a stink. But shouldn't they know that they should just not exist so that the violent misogynists don't try to murder them?
That's his attitude. Josh,
sucks.
You have a look on your face like you disagree with that.
No, I
which is fine. No. I'm just curious.
It is one of the things about this book that I found so fascinating. One is the variety of directions that people come at this very sensitive
we get
topic
all of them, which is fascinating.
Yes,
yeah.
It's so crazy. What I find interesting about Lydecker's situation is that we've discussed that Ralph kind of in a roundabout way talks about his generation being the generation of whatever people want to believe in the privacy of their own home. That's up to them. It's not for me to say who's right or who's wrong if I don't have an opinion, kind of. Where, as a society, we've pushed past that. This is kind of the last generation that did that.
Yeah.
Kind of. Lydecker's frustration comes from the fact that, for him, this whole thing is a non-issue. In that, the way he sees it coming together is this whole fight happened because we found out that they were trying to get women care rezoned so they could shut it down. And he says here, and before he gets into all of the weird victim blaming sentiment, he mentions that was never going to happen,
which is horseshit.
He's saying it couldn't happen because of it shares so much property with the hospital, and they wouldn't shut down.
In real life, the people that want to shut down abortion clinics definitely wouldn't harm their communities just to do that, right? No, that's a horseshit argument. Well, of course, that can't possibly happen. Ignore all of the thousands of times it has and continues to happen.
I'm so grumpy.
Well, it sucks.
I trust his perspective on this because he goes on to mention the people who are voting on that, who are making that decision, that because of who's on that board is yet another reason that this never would have passed. This was never going to change. Yes, there were still going to be radicals that were going to try to firebomb the place and protest it and stuff. He doesn't touch that part of the argument. But I get his frustration and where King has set us up in a world where all of these men of a certain age are minding their own business, no matter the harm it causes everyone around them. That's what I think's interesting about this character specifically is I hate him, but I think thematically I'm supposed to in that frustrating way.
If he would have just stopped much sooner, it wouldn't have been as bad, but he kept going. And you, like, obviously he's frustrated, so he's blaming everybody. And I get that, but it's just a shitty attitude that I, as a reader, I struggled with, which is the point, and does not bother me to be put in that situation to feel about someone very like, damn it, I thought I liked this guy. What the fuck is he talking about? But I said it in the first episode, not concerning yourself with things like this is a privilege.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Sorry.
And I think it's because we talked about that, and Ben, kind of your points about the shittier side of Ralph that has really brought that theme to the forefront of like, you really can see where these characters' personal morality lies.
It reminds me like, the movement that's been going on for a few years as far as being an ally. We've been hearing about that a lot more and understanding what that truly means. And it's really easy to be an ally when you are speaking out against this sort of like, them, the outside people.
Yeah.
But when it's somebody you think you respect or have respected or do respect or love, or someone who means something to you really fucking hard to be an ally, that's the challenge. And I think this book is setting up moments like that are interesting, and I hope people get that message and don't take it the other way.
Yeah, I am very interested to see how Ralph grows throughout the book, because I do think there are, actually I don't know that he has made any progress so far, but I'm hoping he does.
One of the hopeful things, jumping back to this drive home, is Lydecker saying that Charlie Pickering's going to go away for a while on these charges. He's not going to make bail. Ed is probably going to just cut ties with him. He sent him to do a job. He didn't do it. He'll move on, which Ralph doesn't really buy.
No, that all sounds reasonable, though. Like,
Right.
Lydecker, I feel like, knows what he's... like, that's how it usually happens. Of course, that's not how it's going to go down. But I love, like, later, we just get him having to admit several times, I was very wrong.
Alan Pangborn, on a scale of 1 to 10, he's the 10 of cops. So every cop character we get, I subconsciously compare them to Alan Pangborn. Once Ralph gets home, that's when he starts trying to figure out, how did this fucking thing get in my pocket? And that's when he remembers that when he came home and Dorrance was on his front step, his door was also unlocked, which is something Bill does all the time that he hates. And now he realizes that Dorrance was waiting for him, but had gone upstairs, taken it out of the cupboard, and put it in his pocket. He even double checks the cupboard just in case.
Which is, like, how did he know to do that?
Right. Like, there's
Such a cool moment.
so many weird things about Dorrance that I hope that this is not a king tease. And as he's rummaging through the pockets of the other things in his coat, that's when he pulls out a slip of paper. And on the slip of paper is the quote that I butchered earlier, which is, each thing I do, I rush through so I can do something else.
To get to the next thing to do.
Get to the next thing to do. And Dorrance copied that line, folded it up in a piece of paper, and put it in his pocket. Like, the message that Dorrance had to have gotten had to have been so specific to do these things that I'm just really curious what brings it all together. We wrap up this day. It's been a day for poor Ralph. We wrap it up by him calling and canceling his acupuncture appointment. He's like, well, if Dorrance was right about fucking all of today, I'm just going to trust him on canceling the acupuncturist.
Because he basically told him it was too late to go back. So, because at first I was thinking, no, keep it. Then you don't have to deal with this crazy shit. But he did tell him it was too late.
Yeah. So, Ben, very excited to talk to you about this. It's a King Dream sequence. I know how much you love those.
We need a stinger.
I love a King Dream sequence. I guess I missed the point where he said he was dreaming.
Oh,
because
no.
everything happened and I was just like sitting at my computer going, what in the fuck? I felt very much like Ralph for a moment, where I just was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's real. I'm gonna hit the sack.
This gave me such strong Creepshow vibes. I could picture this dream perfectly because we've seen it.
It is
kind
almost
of in
literally
Creepshow.
several Creepshow sketches all smashed into one.
Yeah, so with the bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the buried in the sand.
Yep. And the tide coming up. So Ralph is on the beach and he sees something off in the distance. I think he thinks it's a ball or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's Ted Danson.
Yeah. And as he gets closer to it, he realizes that it's Carolyn's head and she is buried up to her head in sand. Josh, are
That's
you
so
okay?
horrifying. It's such... Ben doesn't like knives. I don't like being buried alive. With any part of me showing. If you're going to bury me alive, do it whole hog or don't do it at all.
Like when
Bury
they,
my
when they
whole
roast,
hog.
like Hawaiian roast, like when they roast the whole hog.
Oh, yeah, you
underground.
bury it with the
roast me.
coals.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that'd be delicious.
Oh,
I
that's how
would
we'll
be
bury
tasty.
Josh.
Yes.
That's how we will.
Thank you.
Anyway. So Carolyn has a message for Ralph, and this scene is just heartbreaking and disturbing because he's trying to rescue her and she's like, dude, I'm already dead. Like this isn't important because the water is the tide is coming in and it's burying her and her head is splitting open.
Bugs are
And
coming
cockroaches,
out.
yes.
Yeah, this also gave me like revival vibes.
It was giving me real first dream sequence in the dark half.
Mm-hmm.
So she tells him to watch out for the white man's tracks. And I was like, all right, I'm sure that's going to make sense later. Don't worry about it. And he wakes up before 2 a.m, completely awake. Now he's getting less than 2 hours of sleep every night. And he goes to watch the neighborhood like he's been doing all these mornings. Except for tonight, he catches 2 4-foot-tall green aurid creatures dressed in white smocks.
He continues to describe them as what people who claim to be abducted by aliens describe, like little bald men with big eyes. I can only imagine them as truly shrunk little bald human men for some reason. I don't know why.
The image I have in my head, at least on this listen through, has been affected by the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Because he describes them in he's looking at them and he runs and gets binoculars to look at them closer. But when he tries to focus on their faces, they aren't like real faces. He says they're like a sketch of a face.
That's so fucking weird.
It is the idea of a face more than a real face. And I could not help but imagine if you went to Doll-E-Mini and typed in little bald doctors, it would show you an exact picture of what these guys looked like. And it would be terrifying. The version that you can use for free online sucks. And
It's like nightmares.
by design, can't do faces.
Okay.
And so whenever it generates a person, like if you tell it, show me Guy Fieri eating a big hot dog.
Do you always
that
search
looks-
sexual things?
Almost exclusively. Show me Shrek eating a big hot dog. Yeah, it will show you something that kind of looks like Guy Fieri, but the face will be just like 2 dots and an awful crease. And then you're just like, no, that's not a face.
We're going to do it, and then we're going to post it on our Instagram when we
listeners,
release
send
the
us
episode.
theirs.
Oh, God, no, that's even more horrifying.
I want to see him.
I do love this scene, though. It's one that seeing them and reading about them for the first time always stuck with me because it was such not anything I expected to be the next thing that happened.
It's so out of left field.
Yeah.
It is a bonkers thing that happens.
Yes, and so he sees them just standing outside of her house in the dark, not concerned about anything. They have an air about them that they belong there and they're not doing anything wrong. But he's kind of freaked out because that's something strange to see. And he notices that one of them is carrying scissors. And he knows that May Locker is a very ill, very
Oh my
old
God,
woman.
I just figured out what they're doing. Sorry.
You just figured it?
Just
you finished
figured it
the
out.
reading, right?
Wow.
I just figured it out. Sorry.
Proud of you, buddy.
I'm so sorry. I'm so
okay.
stupid. I got distracted by the brutality and that it was a dog later. That I didn't retroactively put this together, that he's on the front steps with a pair of clean scissors.
Yes, they are clean as opposed to another tool we'll see a different sort of creature carrying later. Oh, Josh, you're so sweet.
You're doing your best, dude.
So Ralph,
I don't know what's plot relevant in this book.
So Ralph does the good neighborly thing and he calls 911.
Anonymously. Sure.
This is one of several just dumb shit Ralph does throughout this book.
And he is on less than 2 hours of sleep
That's
for the
true.
past few months.
That's fair. And I do like, because it's later on in like the last chapter when he's really just kind of working through what the fuck is going on, he is just more or less making wild leaps in logic.
I feel like that's part of what this experience is doing to him, though. Like it's part of that is having that knowledge.
It's wearing down
Yeah.
the wall of like this instinct that he has.
Yeah, later he says that seeing and knowing are the same thing.
Yeah.
There's a real madcap search for binoculars and all of these things that he does to like, get as much information as he can.
Mm-hmm.
But he does clock that they have auras, but they don't have balloon strings. How did I miss this? He makes that that phone call. And here's what's weird is in his mind's eye, which has been pretty correct thus far, he sees Maylocker, the old woman, with her throat slit. And then he sees a caretaker also stabbed multiple times. But when the police get there, Maylocker is dead, but they think natural causes, maybe something scared her. She might have had a heart attack, but she's alone.
I didn't take those as actual visions. That was just his imagination.
I actually had to go back and double check because later, after he sees the third little bald doctor, which we'll get to, he reflects on his phone call and he's like, those guys, they weren't menacing. I just freaked out. And so I was like,
see.
wait, is that actually how it happened? And it is. He's not seeing them as menacing like he does the third one immediately. He just starts to get concerned more, talks himself into getting concerned because it's not normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I think that kind of explains that a little bit.
Yeah, okay, that does make sense. It's hard because we have so much of Ralph trusting that instinct and it's always right. So this was a weird departure from that. Maybe it's just so that we believe that maybe he doesn't get everything right with this intuition. So we talked about the next day is that conversation with him and Lydecker that we talked about.
Yeah, he also asks about Maylocker. He's way more concerned about that, though, than he is his own thing. And he's just been waiting to ask it. He's like, okay, I have to ask about my stuff first, or he's going to think it's weird that I'm asking about her. And it's so fun because he's like, yeah, the guy, called anonymously and, we think she died of natural causes, but we're going to have a full autopsy done because there was a call. And the first person I thought of was you. And Ralph's like, oh, because of the insomnia, a real super chill. And Lydecker's like, yeah, but the officer who took the call said that he sounded young and sure of himself. And then he's like, no, not that you're not. And Ralph's like,
so
I know I'm old. It's okay. It was just a cute moment.
Like he wasn't thinking about the words he was saying. That's how he was described. Sorry, not he didn't say old Manny McMahon.
It is a funny moment, but it's also a cool little foreshadowing of later when we start to physically see that Ralph seems to be getting younger.
I didn't catch all of the clues at first, and then I was going through my notes and I was like, son of a bitch, it starts pretty early.
Well, people start telling him he looks a lot better. They're like, oh, my thing I told you about worked. You're sleeping better. And he's like, sure. So it's not, it is very subtle at first. It's really cool.
After leaving, getting that information about Maylocker, and finding out that there was no foul play, seemingly, and that they had to kick the door in because all the doors and windows were locked, so there couldn't have been intruders because it was all locked from the inside.
It's a real locked room situation.
Exactly. We need Sherlock Holmes.
I know.
He decides that it's time to lay it all out there to someone.
Oh, wait. We have to pause here because Lydecker is like, promise you won't tell anybody this. And he's like, oh, yeah, I won't. And he's like, especially your friend Bill, the old prof, doesn't really strike me as someone who keeps things to himself. So what does Ralph do after promising?
Decides to go and talk to the prof.
This is fascinating because the way he talks himself into it, because, Lois will just gossip to her friends. She's just a flaky, woman. And Bill is an academic, and so he's going to be very reasonable. And then Ralph gets super pissed off when Bill gives him literally exactly what he said he was going to before.
Yeah.
They don't really go too into why he trusts Bill so much with his problems while thinking that his female friend is complete ditz. And
later he admits that he's been viewing Lois through Bill's eyes.
Yeah.
At first, Bill seems to be like pretty on board. He seems really reasonable about everything that's happening.
To everything.
He even calls May's brother because that's next of kin. He'll be notified if something weird comes up in that autopsy. So he's actively on board, and he's like, I'll go in and I'm going to make this call. And it's while he's inside that Ralph sees a little girl jump roping. You guys want to talk about this little girl jump roping?
I never want to see a little girl jump roping after this.
I think this scene is an Aphex Twin music video.
I don't understand any of that.
There's some people in the audience that are gonna be like, huh. Anyway, he sees this little girl jumping rope and chanting eerily in a, if you're listening, very upsetting voice. And when he finally like stops and looks closer, he realizes it's not a little girl. It's just the face is so clean and lineless that it gave the impression of youth, despite the fact that it's a bald little old man, which is it is creepy, but it's kind of funny.
It's very Lost Highway.
Yeah.
It did redefine.
Fuck, I would watch a David Lynch directed version of this movie.
Oh my God. Oh yeah. That would be great. Sorry.
That'd be very good.
Yeah.
This description made me recalibrate how they look in my head to become a little more androgynous, because I had to be like, how did he believe it might have been a little girl? And just it made the whole thing more alien to me. He realizes that this little girl's also wearing Bill's goddamn Panama hat that we've been looking for, and he takes a bite out of it while growling at Ralph for some reason.
That's intimidating as fuck.
Weird. Is that before or after Ralph Hadoukens him?
It is before the Hadouken.
It was the Hadouken that made me go, okay, this book is way weirder than I remember it being. It's already a weird book.
It's a fever dream.
It goes Street Fighter right before it goes Yu Yu Hakusho. So, anime friends, get that joke. And Bill comes back and he says, talk to Larry. He's on board. He's going to give me a call. Ralph, you look real weird. Oh, because 45 minutes have gone by in this very small glimpse.
I did love that because in the narration, Bill says, oh, I can't, such a loudmouth talked for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And Ralph, oh, that's Bill being fucking drama queen again. Completely disregards this.
Yeah.
And then when Bill finally was like, no, I was for real. Are you okay? I like that part.
They get into a huge fight after this because Bill is willing to maybe admit that there's some possible psychic phenomena going on, but even though he could believe that, he can't believe anything else that Ralph is saying. And basically he takes the angle of there is possibly something medically wrong with you that you need to get checked out right away. And he says the worst thing to say, which you need to go see Litchfield, not an acupuncturist, not a hypnotist. Thank you. In my head, I was picturing a snake in a basket. I could not pull up the right.
Your acupuncturist, your snake charmer.
Yeah, no fake ears.
And they have a knockdown, drag out verbal argument on the street that the mailman hears, somebody at a store down the street hears. Lois
hears from several houses down a little bit.
Do either of you think Bill is being unreasonable even a little bit?
This is what I specifically wrote in my notes. Ben, do you think Bill cares more about Ralph's well-being or being right?
He's what Lydecker was talking about.
Ralph thinks that he's being sanctimonious and has this thought of like, oh, there's this tone in his voice of like, what I expected him to say. He has this tone in his voice. I couldn't believe it. And I thought he was going to say pity. But he thinks Bill is, what does he say? That this tone of his voice is like satisfaction.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think Bill was all that wrong. Now, in the real world, we are, if this happened in the real world, of course, Bill is being 1,000% right. Ralph is seeing shit.
Also, I think
you should see a doctor.
You're not supposed to challenge hallucinations because that's sets people who are having them
that
off in a
also.
really bad way. There's a better way to
Sure.
deal with it. Bill's not a psychologist. He's
Sure.
not going to know that. So I agree, but I think he came at it a little
Too hard.
too hard. Yeah, he wasn't just like, I'm sorry you're going through this. I will listen to you. I'm worried because what you said sounds like it could be a medical thing. Will you please get checked out? They just get into
Okay,
a screaming
I agree
match.
with that.
When he says you're starting to sound like Ed, that
was probably not necessary.
He's careless with his words.
Yes.
I think the emotion you're picking up on is when somebody believes so strongly that they're right that they don't care how they say it to you. They don't use tact because it doesn't matter because they're so right.
Which seems
And
to be
that's thoughtless.
a theme of the book, is
Yes.
everyone believing that they are right, which I think is a dumb theme and a dumb argument because it makes it seem like there is not a objectively better, like good answer to any of these problems.
This
but
isn't a book you read to escape the real world. Tell me that much.
Ralph decides to take a walk again. He's going to go down to the old man Derry hang by the airport, and he reflects on the secret cities of Derry, that there's a Derry for the old folks. There's a Derry that seems specifically for children. I like the referencing Neibolt Street and those little things. So the old folks are also, they are not unaffected by this debate that's taken over the town. So you're starting to see that infiltrate this group of people who, as Ralph talked earlier, are just people who hang out and shoot the shit and nothing.
Yeah, they play
Circus,
chess
yeah.
together. They have like chess tournaments.
So they find out, somebody who hangs out there has cancer, and people are being affected by a lot of things right now. And Ralph is just kind of trying to get away. But the real important thing we find out, Faye, the guy who's putting together this chess tournament, who told him about the friend that has cancer, they're just talking about all that insanity, and he decides to tell Faye about what happened with Ed and how crazy that whole thing was, and about, like, I can't figure out, because at this point we still hadn't discovered why Ed was back there for any reason. And that's when we find out that back beyond those gates is a place called Solotech, a flight school. Can't imagine that's
probably won't come up again.
probably won't come up again. Better leave it alone. I only know going into this, I only knew one thing about this book, and it's about that.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's because where we record.
It's where
is from
it's
this
where
book.
it's where we live. It's where our
Yeah.
studio is. I got to know everything about this place. He heads home and he comes across Rosalie, who is barking at nothing. Right, guys.
Yep, she's fine,
Right?
and she's going to be fine. Nothing bad's
She'll
going
live
to
forever.
happen to her ever.
Talking about fucking stings we need. We need a sting that's just ba-ba, dog violence.
A dead dog.
It really
sting.
is. And this is the first time that Ralph summons the auras, which I thought was very cool.
Mhm.
And because he knows that he must be barking at something. And it's that fucking Doctor Number 3 again, trying to chastise the dog.
Yeah, the dirty coat, nasty little fucker with the rusty, I don't know if it's rusty, in my head it is, scalpel.
He says
It
it's
is,
rusty,
yeah, it's
yeah.
rusty.
Okay.
And don't they say, I might be imagining, that this doctor has no aura?
Yes, well,
How
or
is-
Ralph can't see it.
Or
he
Ralph
he
can't
makes
see
that concession,
It's
but yeah.
just, that makes such a distinct picture in my
Mhm.
mind of like this little doctor standing in the middle of the street that is violent with aura.
Mhm.
Everything has it, like inanimate objects have auras. Everything is glowing with color. And then right dead center, like a hole, is just like a silhouette of nothing. Is
Oh,
such
that's
a
so
scary
creepy.
visual.
Oh, we also find out here, or we did or will, that the colorful cursing that Ed displayed in the
Mhm.
first part of the book sounds exactly like things this guy is saying.
Yeah.
So it's adding to
A
the
little tie-in there. And Ralph's yelling at him to leave the dog alone. He's saying that it's his dog and he's going to get it. And as Penn said, he Hadoukens him. He waves his hand to like shoo him off, and a beam of energy comes flying from his fingertips.
So cool.
And Doc Number 3 barely dodges it. And then
it made me
gives
go,
him the finger and call him
"Sure."
short time.
I love the short time thing.
Yes, I do love that they haven't explained it yet.
It makes
But
so much
just
sense.
the fact, and the phrase, we're short timers and they're something else is very cool. And once we get more into what I'm most excited about in this book, hopefully we get to it in part 3, is some of the more lore of what is going on.
I'm going to prod your memories in case the two of you forgot. The last time we heard about short timers was Kingdom Hospital.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Because
Ben pointed that out.
The what was his name? Anubis?
No, it was Paul.
That takes it. That takes all other Ben's name pulls. In your defense, there was also an Anubis.
Anubis was there.
Good.
He was in the show.
Oh, it was so nice going out with you and your lovely wife last night. What was her name? Trollbus? It was
Patty.
Susan? Yeah. Fuck.
Oh, so the little bald doctor is upset at being stopped because he wanted to play with Rosalie. And so he threatens Ralph. He's like, I'll get you, and I'm gonna fuck with you, and I'm gonna fuck with your friends.
He does look for Rosalie. Rosalie ran off, and he follows Rosalie to the park, where he comes across a character I did not expect to be here doing what she's doing, or just at all. Lois is in the park, just sobbing by herself.
Yeah, Lois is on the park bench sobbing, and when Ralph walks up to her, she does not want him to see her because her makeup is all runny. And he sits down next to her, and instead of going away like she very politely asks, it's after what he's just seen. He's just like, no, you know what? I'm going to figure out what's wrong with her. So he asks her, why are you crying? And she launches into this story about how he is not the only one who's been suffering insomnia. She started to get insomnia 4 months before his wife died. So she's had it longer than Ralph. And finally went to Dr. Litchfield because, she doesn't say it right here, but she's been having experiences that are concerning to her. And she lays everything out for him, tells him what's going on, and he can't give her a prescription for sleeping pills like Ralph speculated he'd do for him because she has a heart condition and that doesn't mix. And so she continues to explain that her son and daughter-in-law called her up out of the blue and are like, hey, let's get some food. We'll come visit. And she's like, I'm going to make you food. And she got up at her normal, 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
She says, you should have seen me. I felt so silly cooking this elaborate meal at 2 a.m., getting my makeup ready at 4 a.m. just to make sure, because she's already seems like afraid that her kid is going to notice that she hasn't been sleeping and get worried. But her kid and daughter-in-law are pieces of shit.
Oh, Dr. Litchfield is also a piece of shit. Yeah, we find out that
It's nice to get confirmation that Dr.
Yeah.
Litchfield is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and Dr. Litchfield called her son, which is illegal. So he explained everything that's going on with her, and basically, in very clear terms, said your mom is losing her mind. He said she's experiencing a decline in cognition. And I feel, why did Stephen King write her this way? Lois had to look the word up. She's like, do you know what that means? And Ralph's like, thinking. It means thinking.
Yeah. She's not written the most what's the word I'm looking
Favorably?
for? Favorably, yeah.
She's definitely written as a housewife of the era.
Like Darkwing Duck, the neighbors that live next
Yes.
door, the mom, the 50s mom.
Weird poll, but yeah.
Edith Bunker.
I know that. That's
All in the Family?
Yes.
My man? Anyway.
I was like, I knew the name, but I couldn't pull a face around.
So Lois's family comes to see her to say, hey, we're worried about you. We want you to live in this living facility where old people
try to
go
put her
to
in a
die,
home.
basically. Yeah. And she gets very upset, and she's like,
Reasonably so.
not going to happen, and you should have hung up on him as soon as you figured out what he was doing. And then let's talk about what the daughter-in-law does.
Okay, did you know what she did immediately? The second
Immediately.
I'm like, why didn't you yell at her for going in your fucking room?
Yeah.
so funny that this is the justification Ralph uses to be like, she is also seeing magical powers. Because
Ralph's dense, though.
she's telling this story, and she's like, I'm standing my ground and not going to this appointment that they set for me. And her daughter-in-law leaves the room, and she's happy about it because she hates her daughter-in-law so goddamn much. And when her daughter-in-law comes back, her first words are, "Where are the earrings I got you for Christmas?" Immediate red flag.
Yeah.
Why the fuck
Why'd
are
you go
you
looking?
asking? Why were you looking for them? What did you want? Immediately, it is
Lois
obvious
could've-
this woman swiped them.
Yeah, Lois could have put the hammer down instantly, but instead they spend hours searching for them,
Looking for
tearing
them.
up, instead of just saying up your ass.
Right?
So, and she tells Ralph that she said some things then she doesn't remember, and they ended up leaving, and it is a really irritating scene, like irritating in an effective way,
Right.
because this woman just is
The
so
worst.
upsetting. And
Reminded me of fucking Bobby's sister.
Yeah, I was
Yeah, a
just
little
thinking
bit.
that.
And Ralph figures out, he's like, you knew she took them. And she's like, well, he goes, you saw her take them. She's like, well, no, I was in the other room. He goes, no, you saw it in her when she came back that she had taken them. And that's when they...
And how long have you been seeing
Yeah.
yours? Hilarious. Because literally, and she's like, how could you have possibly known? I have a small amount of situational awareness.
And we also find out that she can't see May Locker's house, so she assumed that was Ralph who called, but she sees him up at night sitting in his chair. I love
Just
that he's
sees into his
I hate
window.
Yeah,
that.
because I would have had, my first thought would have been, oh my God, have I done anything gross in front of that window?
Oh God, I for sure jerked off in that chair. Ah, Jesus.
And she's like, I'm a lady, and if you'd started to do something gross, I would have looked away. But this is what I was alluding to in the first part between Ralph and Lois. Josh, you remember?
that connection, yeah.
Because he's thinking of her, because Bill refers to her as our Lois, and he's like, that's not right anymore. She's not our Lois. She's my Lois. And you can tell they're going to have a romance.
Right.
Yeah.
We find out that she can also see the balloon strings. She can see all the things that not quite as intensely because we find out that she can't see everything that Ralph can see because we hear Rosalie again. And Ralph turns and sees one of the restroom door in the park open, and bald dumbass 3 is out there heckling the dog. And she's like, what's happening? Will you keep talking about this? And in a move just as natural as the Hadouken, he looks at his hands and they're like sparkly, and he puts them over her eyes. And when he takes them away, she can see all of it.
Which I have a feeling later he'll regret having opened that door for her.
Can't imagine why. It seems so wholesome, the things he can see. And I really, really thought they were going to stop him. I really did.
No, how could you think that? This is Stephen King and it's a dog.
That is very true. It just, in my mind's eye, it felt so... It's like if we were right here and Rosalie was like within...
Like you wanted to reach
across
through the book
room.
and stop him?
Like in my head, I was like, it seems like you're pretty close. You could just run over.
Yeah.
See, for me,
Just go
in
knock
my
him
head,
down.
they were far enough away
That it could.
that all he could do was watch helplessly.
Yeah.
Which is so much scarier.
He tries to hit him with a blast of...
And he can't.
Yeah,
He doesn't have any
and-
juice left.
Yeah, and Josh, what did you think of how Doc number 3 conducts his business? Wait, he just came out of the bathroom. I don't mean it that way.
He wipes twice and calls it good. And then
He's very small.
he's very
Probably
small.
not.
He's a very
Okay,
small
yeah.
man. He creeps over to Rosalie and takes his scalpel and he cuts her balloon string, which for dogs is out of their nose, which I thought was interesting. And I was like, oh, I assumed instant death.
Yeah.
And it's so much more horrifying.
It is so worse.
It references back to his dream of the bugs crawling out of his wife, that it's like the blackness starts pouring out and covering
like a body bag.
Yeah, like a body. What'd you call it? The death bag is what it's called. Yeah. It's so fucking horrifying.
Rosalie doesn't die right away, I think, because they don't chase him. Or no, does Lois shoot him with something? Yeah.
He's trying to articulate how this will work because it's nonsense. And he basically tells her to make a finger gun and shoot. And that's Spirit Gun Yu Yu Hakusho. That's where that reference is. She spirit guns at him and hits him in the hip, and he's like, God, motherfucker. He's like so fucking mad. And he just, despite having a wound, which is also just a sign of how powerful they are, he doesn't limp when he walks away. He throws a giant tantrum about how bad it hurts, but then he runs off. And so does Rosalie.
He takes her bandana first.
Oh, yeah.
And he has Bill's Panama, which Lois
With
doesn't
a bite
notice.
out of it.
And there's something else that he has.
Yeah.
He thinks he saw a glimmer around the thing's ears, and he thinks, even though he knows for a fact that this daughter-in-law stole the earrings, she doesn't have them anymore. The doctor has them.
They decide to head back to Lois's, and Ralph is going to fill her in on everything.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
I hope that high five the audio made it. And as he's talking about this, he also adds the new piece of information that cutting the balloon cord isn't out and out killing something, but it is a murderous act.
It's speeding up the process,
Right.
making it not a natural death. Because he reflects on the people he's seen earlier whose balloon strings he's seen them and they're shorter and they're sick. So he's like seeing sort of, oh, this is another type of death.
And there's a Ludlow reference. That was great. But he fills Lois in on all this, and then...
Except the earrings.
And then he's like, all right, you know everything. Get the fuck out of here. Get out of town. And she's like, no, you just filled me in on all this insane shit. You want me to get out of here? And he's like, yeah, you're in the way, or whatever his like excuse is, like the classic, if you're gone, I'll know you're safe kind of a thing. And that's where we're really building this romantic relationship with them. And she's like cooking him a home.
This and Casablanca, pretty much the same.
I've never seen Casablanca.
Don't worry about it.
Lois is a woman of a different time as well. She's like, oh, I hope you just sit in my dead husband's chair.
Yeah.
Don't get underfoot, which is fine. I'm going to get out my okay china. And I hope you're not one of these sensitive men who cries and shares his feelings. And Ralph has a boner.
Yeah. Feeling young again.
When was the last time we had a good boner talk, y'all?
It's been a bit.
It's been a minute.
Well, the longer your podcast goes, the older your podcast gets, the more
boner
infrequent.
talks less and less. It's
Really grow out of them.
nothing wrong with it. It
No,
happens
it's
to all
natural.
podcasts. Eventually.
It'll happen more if you keep talking about it. Jesus Christ, can we move on?
We have to cancel our show.
Ralph goes home, and his plan is to settle things with Bill positively. And when he gets there, he sees that there's a note from Bill saying he's in Derry home because that friend of his that's dying is circling the drain. And
God, man.
What?
Circling the
Circling
drain.
the drain.
You can't say that in Derry.
Didn't think about that. So he's at the hospital, and the note also is an apology.
Which I liked.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm sorry, I was a shit. You just came to me for advice and help, and I treated you like crap. And if you can stand me anymore, I'd love to make it up
And
to you.
I also like Ralph's train of thought as he's walking back and like deciding to to apologize.
Yeah.
And he's like,
He's my friend.
He's my
Fuck
friend. It's
Yeah.
a very real moment of being like, yeah, he was a dick, but so was I. Whatever. It's nice.
I am baffled. Speaking of the decisions Ralph makes, you mentioned earlier that he does some weird shit. This guy's dying. Like this is a hospice situation. Would you ever call someone's hospice room to find a friend? If it wasn't an emergency?
If it wasn't an emergency, no, of course not.
Well, Ralph does.
Well, first he gets a phone call from Lydecker, who has been trying to call him nonstop. Because we got some news, y'all. The bail for Charles Pickering was $80,000. Ed Deepno showed up with that in a briefcase in cash.
That really upsets me, just the idea of someone, he only had to put up 10%, $80,000. People are abusing money in these books. Stop it.
Weird, money seems to be on the side of evil in most cases.
You don't talk about money in that way.
Nobody has any idea how he got the money, but it happened. And we find out that as Lydecker is saying, yeah, still wrong about this, it was that the Friends of Life pretty much turned on Ed because he was getting too crazy.
Radical.
So Ed, Charlie, and then these two other people, Frank Felton and Sandra McKay, who are the most extremists out of the group, are all just doing their own thing. And I'm just going to describe Sandra because Lydecker spends a lot of time. Can't imagine it'll be important. But it says that she wears a sweater that says Baby Factory and claims to have birthed 15 children, but has no children.
He's never been pregnant.
I just don't know what to do with that information of this crazy woman. But it is definitely a piece of information
Maybe
that lets
the
you know
Centurions took all the babies.
that. Oh no! What if that is it? Lydecker offers him police protection because obviously his name's on the shit list, and Ralph turns it down. What did you guys think about him turning it down?
He could have done it smoother than he did. He could have been like, I'm an old man. I'm not going to really go anywhere. It'd be a waste of resources. I promise I won't answer the door for anybody and I'll be safe and careful. And I'll call you, if something happens. Instead, he tries to make him feel like he's a proud old man who doesn't need help.
Yeah. He gets off with, God, I was in trouble 3 words into that.
Yeah, gets off.
He gets off. End of scene. Lois is watching from her house and he's in his chair. He gets off the phone, and that's when he makes the call to Derry home, which instead of getting Bill, he gets the guy's niece.
Oh.
Which we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but that scene was fucking weird.
It's weird instantly because he asks if he can speak to Bill, and she's like, no, he's not here. He suggested that everybody get some lunch, and he suggested it in a very poetic way. Isn't that cool? And they're making small talk. Ralph's like, oh, I heard your uncle is a really great guy. And she's like, yeah, his fan club won't be paying the bills when they come, will they? And he's like,
God.
If that's you, like if you're the person who says those things, get a therapist.
Desperately.
Yeah.
I also understand it is extremely hard to watch a family member and be the person that has to take care of, exclusively take care in some cases of that family member. It's something I've had to watch in my own life. It is extremely hard, and I do not begrudge anyone
It is not
feeling
fun being
stressed.
in hospice.
But he does pick up through her aura through the phone that she is thinking of killing him.
She's been thinking about
pulling the
speeding it
plug
up.
of mercy killing this man. And he sees the blue in her aura and thinks murder is blue. I know that now, which is a wild thing.
And interesting because he didn't see that with the knife guy. He saw black and green.
Yeah, because Black was the one that was doing the violence. Black was
green is paranoia, I believe he says, right?
Paranoia and confusion.
Yeah.
So there must be that black
I don't know.
color.
I don't
must
know
mean
that
something, but it is interesting.
We need a color wheel.
Yeah,
Yes!
the what do you call them? Emotion detector ring,
mood ring,
the mood ring,
rules
of the world of auras are 1-to-1, but certain things
maybe
Ralph seems to
because
think so.
Blue, this is like grief with technically murder, and the other thing was more like a violent act?
Well, it's just that thing where scientifically it's proven dudes just see less colors than women. So he's just like,
Oh God,
yeah,
what's
it's
Lois
blue.
see?
It's blue, whatever. It's like, no, that's actually periwinkle. Murder is periwinkle.
I always knew murder would be periwinkle.
Yeah.
Ralph does another chunk of reflecting on everything he's learned so far, all the docks, the balloons, everything. And he spies, when he's back home waiting for Bill, he spies a old but healthy woman, a young man who is alarmingly close to death but looks fine, and a purple light erupt from a manhole cover for 3 straight minutes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, what
strange.
is that about?
What?
Don't
the
worry
fuck?
about it. These moments are my single favorite part of the book. The moments where you are glimpsing this force that is so far outside of human comprehension. We are not supposed to be seeing these things, and we do not have nearly enough context to understand what the hell it is. Yeah. I love that.
This is the 2 kids fighting scene that CM talked about a little bit earlier. The example he gives is Times Square at New Year's Eve and midnight of what that must look like.
Yeah.
Personally, I want to see what Castle Rock looked like during the end of Needful Things.
God.
That's the aura night I want to see. But I thought that was a beautiful description of all that energy coming to life. And then that's when Ralph realizes that his hair is thicker
And darker.
than it has been before. And he starts reflecting on, people keep saying you look better. And you know what? I'm tired, but I feel better. And I thought that was pretty great. He sees Mrs. Perrin. Is that how you pronounce her name?
I don't know.
The old busybody who is like, fix your shirt, you
I
young
love
whippersnapper.
her. Yeah,
favorite
same.
character.
She's
She
got
gives
great-
him so much shit, and he deserves every minute of
It's so
it.
funny because she's like just openly reading the shit out of Ralph, but everything it's said in a "Hey you" kind of voice. But she seems to genuinely be a friendly person. Is that just me? Because she's like, I'll fix your shirt. It's fucked up. Come over to my house. I'll fix your goddamn shirt. Do you have another shirt?
That is my
Because he's
favorite
still
one.
wearing
So
the
funny.
same. He's wearing the same shirt she offered to fix a couple days ago, and she's like, "If you can bear to part with it, if you have other shirts," and he's like, "Yeah, I have a few." She's like, "It must be very hard for you to pick one every morning."
Yeah.
But Ralph is doing the thing that I did when I was first in college, which is eating a meal straight out of the
He
pot.
still has his pot holder on
Yeah,
his
he's
table.
A big thing of beans.
We've
beans
all-
and hot dogs.
You know, I still, if I'm just making like soup just for me in a little pan, I just put a pot holder under it and a spoon in it, and I
Yeah.
eat it.
We ain't fancy,
Right?
What do you-
After their weird chat, she moves on. He's watching her aura, and he does a little funnel with his hands.
He
Just say what he does. He sucks her off.
He sucks her off.
sucks her off.
That is in my notes, and I was trying to stay away from it. Yeah, she's walking away, and he's like, I want a taste of that. And then
No, he does.
he pulls he puckers up a little hole
Oh, God.
and puts it to his lips, and he just
says,
sucks like a
yum,
straw.
yum.
And he says, Ralph likey. And he sucks part of her aura into his mouth. When he closes
No,
it, he
don't say it.
feels
It's so
it
gross.
snap. Like
Like
the
crunches,
crunch.
like crisp lettuce.
See, I imagined it like if you take a really big bite of cotton candy, that like sugary crystal crunch.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And she feels it. It was not good for her.
Yeah, she thinks a gun went off.
Or
Yeah.
car
Heard-
backfired or something. Yeah. And then
she heard something.
she kind of continues walking away, but isn't quite as steady. Like he's taken her life force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got very excited at this part because I remembered this part and the sudden like shock that Ralph has because he does it without thinking. It is purely instinct, which sure. And he does it, but the immediate line of thought that it leads him to is, I'm a vampire. Have I been leeching off of people this entire time? And it made me go, oh, now we're getting into the interesting shit. And then our reading stopped. So
Super important question for you guys though. If we suddenly had these powers, How many people would you suck off?
I'd suck you both off right now in this room.
God.
On mic.
Try and keep me from sucking everyone off.
And that is it for this episode of
Sam,
Derry
you don't have
Public Radio.
You don't have a take on that?
Join us next time where we will be reading through chapter 24 for Joshua Kahn and Benjamin Graham. I am CM Alexander, reminding you, it's a long walk back to Eden. Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. Thank you for listening to Insomnia Part 2. We hope you enjoyed it. And thanks to our supporter of the show, SKL Stephen King Lovers. Don't forget to visit our friends at Stephen King Lovers if you haven't already. They're the largest Stephen King fan group on Facebook and some of the friendliest, most informative, interactive, and fun fan group around. When you join them on Facebook, you'll find in-depth conversations, giveaways, and general nerding out with fellow King fans. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.